Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Blaster Master Zero. In the last part, we took a cool little break and now it's time for things to get different. Looks like this data matches the information we have in Sophia's database. Jason, I just got confirmation. The one who's commanding all the mutants, the Mutant Lord, is in the area after this one. Got it, thanks. Now we just gotta find a way to get out of this area, but yeah, there's probably a lot of mutants here. To make matters worse, it looks like the mutants who left the glacier area made their way over to this one. No way. Do you think they anticipated that we were coming here? I want to say no way, but with the Mutant Lord being on such an intelligent creature, you'd never know. If that's the case, I doubt they're just going to let us stroll on through. Alright, let's try to find the path of least resistance here. Area 7 is, without a doubt, the most straightforward, because it's literally just a straightforward path. There's a couple little side paths you can do to get 100%, and that's what I'm doing just because, you know, the 100% playthrough here. But it's otherwise very linear. There are, I think, a couple of cases where you have a choice of where to go, but there's just nothing in your way here. In fact, if anything, this area is treated more as a stealth section, because you have these spotlight mutants who, if you get spotted by, will try to actively attack you. But they have so much HP, it's just not worth fighting them. This place's big gimmick, though, outside of that, is that there's quite a number of times you're going to need to leave the Sophia behind to go and activate a switch with Jason to activate an elevator. This leads to one of two things. Either you have to bring the elevator down so you can get Sophia down to you, or bring it down so you can get the Sophia back up to you by heading back to it. This place is not as aggressive as it would seem, though. Without a doubt, the Area 7 in the original game was way more aggressive than this. Mind you, I also recall there just being more spikes in the equivalent area in the original Blaster Master. I'm thinking of one room in particular where it was basically 90% spike. With that said, despite it being very linear, there is still a map to get here, which I find a little surprising. And now we need to do a very long wall climb, because one of the sub-dungeons in this area we need to do this to get to. If you try to get through the little spotlights there, they activate some doors and some worm enemies that are more powerful than the worms in Area 1 will spawn. Otherwise, I actually forget what happens if you just try to brute force your way through that. I think they just open up and then you can progress. The big gimmick with this area in the top-down sections is also stealth. We have some power-up versions of those enemies we first saw, I think, in Area 4? Or was it Area 5? One of the two. And if you get spotted by their spotlights, they all target you. However, a good way around this is actually the stealth decoy we got back in, I think, Area 5? Because not only will they lock onto it and make that their primary target, but they'll also take so much damage from it that you can just walk on past them. Additionally, Area 7 is the place in the game where the lightning ball ability from the Buster Rifle really becomes very effective, because there's a lot of enemies on screen who can get chained from one damage to the next. It's just busted. With that said, let's continue the previous trend we've had the past 3 parts. Let's go over the final DLC character, Shovel Knight. Interestingly, on the extra character menu that you have to access to play any of the extra characters, he's the only one that has copyright information listed, because he's the only one from an outright unrelated company. Shantae didn't have any because Intercreate still had the license for that character technically, due to her appearance and them working on Pirate's Curse. Half Genie Hero, they were just, I think they actually did help a little bit behind the scenes with that one too, but not quite to the same extent. Alright, Shovel Knight, much like Shantae, completely says nope to the gun and goes for a close-range shovel attack, and his adventuring tools that are from his own game. They're completely filled with they're used, instead of the special bar, he has an MP gauge, similar enough to the magic meter for Shantae, and that refills with ammo or gun capsules. He is immune to fallen damage and death in the side-scrolling mode, but his jump height is doubled to rival basically anyone else, and also to use the shovel drop attack where you hold down and try to pogo off things. And he can call Sophia to himself as with all the other additional characters. His main weapon is, of course, his shovel blade. You press the Y button, It attacks directly in front of him. I think it's even shorter range than Shantae's hair, though. And it basically can't rapid fire. However, each swing is absurdly powerful. It's about as powerful as a close-up spread shot. It's ridiculously strong. You can also deflect enemy projectiles with it. In top-down mode, deflected shots will travel in a straight line. And the swings are capable of breaking cracked walls and destroying the blue rocks from Area 4. And in side-scrolling mode, the deflected shots, I think, travel in an arc instead of being straightforward. Later on in Area 1's opening screen, where I talked about that you can get the final sub-weapon for most of the other additional characters, you instead get an ultimate shovel blade, which reduces the cooldown between swings, allows you to charge it up for a more powerful shovel strike in top-down mode, and also allows you to launch a projectile forward while attacking at full health. As for his sub-weapons, he's got his fishing rod, which you drop a line to do weak damage to the surrounding area. However, if you use that around a pool of water, a couple things can happen. You can get recovery items, hand grenades, which will try to damage you. Crabularva. You can use it during the Crabularva mini-boss to just fish them out of there, period. And you can also get turret bombs, so it's not the most useful thing. The recovery items are about all you can get out of it, but there's more bad possibilities than good. You can get the throwing anchor, which is more or less a direct replacement of the grenade sub-weapon for Jason. There's the phase locket, which grants you temporary invincibility. I think it's about 5 seconds long. It allows you to pass through enemies, projectiles, anything really, just not pools or pits. There's the Warhorn, which is a super huge, big crowd control weapon that deals damage to enemies more or less across the middle third of the screen and a little bit into the left and right third. However, a unique thing for Shovel Knight is that he has unique armors that give him passive bonuses. They're more or less the equivalent to Shantae's dances. Your starting armor gives you no bonuses, but there's the ornate plates that you get from the obliteration lasers back in Area 3 where you'd normally get the flash bomb, which turns you gold and illuminates any dark areas. There's the Blaster Master mail you get from beating the remote blaster back in Area 6, where you'd normally get the remote blast weapon, which gives you kind of a greenish tinge armor, but more or less it turns you into the Sophia 3 color scheme. And each shovel swing from there will consume a bunch of your MP to fire off pellets in a giant arc around you. They're not the strongest pellets in the world, but I think they can melt the ice and spike tiles back in Area 6. It's an interesting playstyle. Again, though, Jason's always going to be my favorite way to play the game. With that said, I don't recall Blaster Master 02 getting nearly as much DLC. I think it just got Copen from Gunvolt, and that may have been it, actually. Like, you know what? I'm curious. Was there anything else that I just completely missed? Last update was in November of 2019. By the way, I'm going to be pulling a bit of a long wall claim here. Because to get to this area's final sub-area that's completely optional, you need to go all the way around here. You can also just take some hits in the spikes and say, yeah, no, I'm going to go the Pyrrhic method. But I might as well show the intended way. Actually, no, the most recent update was from February of 2020, which, fixed a game crash, and that looks like it's about it. Yeah, before that, January, minor bug fixes. Huh, yeah, that's actually about it. I'm glad this game got DLC, though, the way it did, because I feel like the Shantae fans and Shovel Knight fans got introduced to the game that weren't already aware from it through that. And this is a very good game, I feel, that people can really like to get introduced to through those kind of methods. It's quite a bit of a genre shift for any of those characters, but it's a fun kind. Also, this is the area where you really start to see me use the Turret Blaster to some really strong effects. It's kind of strange, too, because the Turret Blaster is one of those weapons I kind of wrote off in my early playthroughs because I'd rather do outright damage than distract enemies and walk through them. Then I realized how good of a distraction it was, and how powerful it was if you placed it right underneath something. This weapon is kind of absurd, honestly. I want to say the individual grenades can do more damage just because you're not likely to hit every shot all the same. But I don't care. Either way, we're coming up on the boss for this particular little subsection. And it's an interesting one. It's probably the coolest looking one in the game to me. God damn, that's cool. This is the Venom Master. This thing's gonna move back and forth across the four sides of the screen, trying to fire various lasers at you. It also has little options right out of Gradius that'll fly in from the left and right of the screen to try and fire smaller lasers at you. The big thing to fear is when it pulls back on any of the screen sides, like this, because if it's not moving from one side of the screen to the other, it's going to only pull back a little bit, call in a bunch of options like it's about to, and fire a giant laser that takes up about a third of the arena. Its options are also, I think, trying to power that laser up even further. No, actually, that's more than a third of the arena. That's more or less all of it. The shadow just takes up a third of it. That is absurdly powerful. I don't think it will instant kill you, but it can definitely get a lot of damage in pretty quickly. With that said, between the wave beam, the grenades, and everything else, you still have a lot of damage potential to throw out at it, and it doesn't have many defensive options. And for beating it, we get the Acceleration Blast. Release a huge amount of energy to attack. Sophia's most powerful weapon. Hold the shoot button to charge it and release it to fire. What the game doesn't say there immediately is that you need to have a full SP gauge to use it. Because what it essentially does is the SP gauge turns almost to a charge meter, and it'll count, not quite backwards, but forwards, and when it's completely charged, you use the entire SP meter to fire forward in a very similar blast to what the Venom Master just did. I'm only going to use it once in the LP because you need to stay still for so long, it's just not a very viable offensive option. But damn, is it cool looking! I think there's technically a second time you can use it with no real problem. I just prefer not to myself. And we need to abandon the Sophia here to actually reach the end of the area because we got our main dungeon for the area. It's another stealth section. And one that I am once again going to say, no thanks to the stealth because I got the dummy blaster. I say accidentally having the flash grenade equipped. Whoops. Interesting, though, that the flash grenade doesn't activate them as, or aggro them to me, though. That's kind of interesting. I will say, despite me not using the flash grenade too much, it still is a viable weapon to use, especially when you're in a very crowded chamber. I just have other things that can do more damage more quickly. And really, in these sections, that's kind of the winning strategy to use. That's something if I'm recalling correctly, Blaster Master 2 did, 02 did better with, is that generally speaking, you need to use a bit more strategy for the boss fights because their patterns are a lot more standard Inti creates rather than a platforming boss fight, if that makes sense. Out of the way, boss! What the hell? Okay. You gotta be kidding me! This thing is alive! Jason! Jason! Get out of there now! That gargantuan mutant has an extremely tough outer armor. Your blaster rifle won't even make a scratch on it. Damn it! I don't know how I can beat this thing without Sophia. But I gotta find a way. I don't think there is a way to beat the Planet Eater skeleton boss with this blaster rifle, unless there's just a third strategy I'm not aware of to this fight. What we need to do is jump up these platforms while avoiding any hits. That's kind of hard to do, though, when it has a rock that can bounce almost all the way to the top. Upon hitting this particular switch... How's this, Eve? Perfect. I'm heading your way now. I don't care how strong this thing's armor is. Sophia's gonna blast right through it. Now you can fight the fight properly. This thing has two notable attacks. It can bounce some rocks at about 3 different altitudes, and they do lose momentum to jump higher as they bounce. And it has a homing shot. My strategy for this fight is to use the only time I find the shield weapon useful, let my SP recharge, and then hold the charge button with the acceleration blast equipped. Goodbye. It's done charging. Ready to fire, Jason. Take this, mutant scum. Acceleration blast! That's satisfying. You do, I believe, get a trophy/achievement on the Steam and other console versions for doing that, by the way. I've never fought that fight all the way through normally. Up ahead's where the ringleader, the mutant lord, is hiding, right? Yeah, no doubt about it. This time we will put an end to this. Let's go, Jason. Yeah. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 8, I guess we're heading towards endgame. Don't pay attention to the next part's title. See you guys then.